from USA or from your basement. We don't know because today is the privacy meetup organized by CryptoMood. Don't forget that anybody who participates in submitting questions on our Facebook and Twitter pages will participate for a chance to win an premium access to all CryptoMood's tools worth $1,000. So unlike all the other times before that we have hosted such webinars, nowadays the price is 10x. So we definitely look forward to getting some of those interesting questions. We have a list of them already here in front of me. However, we're looking for more submissions. Another big news that I would like everybody here still in the beginning to hear is that in a week's time, we're gonna have the DeFi meetup. So look forward to more information regarding that on our official pages. My name is Alex, and today I will be your host. We're gonna be talking about privacy coins and the trends around the industry, specifically concerning privacy. Now, in front of me here are some specialists in the area, and because it's a privacy meetup, I don't know anything about them. So I'll just allow them to introduce themselves, and I would just suggest anybody who feels ready to jump in, and then we'll just follow up on that. Anybody who wants to go ahead and be the first one. Maybe you're muted, John.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm a Grin contributor. I hope you know what Grin is, but it's a privacy coin. We'll talk about it more later. Anyway, I'm a contributor, but not a developer. I recently started doing documentation for the project. And I'm nobody. That's what I am. I like to work on Grin.
Thank you, John. Who's next?
I'll jump in.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to mention, I'm not John, my name is Paouky. That's how people know me in the Grin community.
Good to know, thank you.
Nice to meet you, Paouky. My name is Doug Tuman. I'm the host of MoneroTalk. So I'm a Monero enthusiast. I've been involved in Monero for, well, I guess I won't tell you guys, right? That would be against the ethos of Monero. But it started off as a Bitcoin guy. I'm not a super old school Bitcoin guy. I got involved in like late 2013. Went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and I saw Bitcoin's lack of privacy as being a vital flaw, and I fell in love with Monero and been following it ever since. My day job is completely unrelated to crypto. I'm the commissioner of engineering for the town of Hempstead. It's a very large municipality. It's it's the largest town in the United States of America. And then I'm running for U.S. Congress in New York, in New York's 4th congressional district. Monero is not a major discussion point. Most of my constituents don't really care about crypto, but on a national level, it's certainly a major concern of mine. And in real brief, I integrated into my platform as saying, I see Monero as the tool that will preserve our liberties in the digital age. So that's my quick intro there.
Thank you, Douglas. And our last guest, it's your turn.
Hello, I'm Cryptosi. I work with Pivx. I generally specialize in governance. I'm not a developer also, but I do like to boss developers around and get on their nerves, which is great fun. Pivx is obviously a privacy project. We've been around for a while. I've personally been in crypto about as long as our friend from Monero, late 2012. I had a strange route into privacy, actually, whereby I first initially got into Bitcoin, and I didn't really see there was any governance there. So I was kind of worried about how the direction goes. This was kind of pre the whole scaling debate and the big blocks and little blocks. Then I went into Dash, which was also a privacy coin, but I went there for the master nodes and the governance and the budget. Dash made a pivot. They pivoted away from privacy towards usability. I think they probably made the right choice. I think they made it possibly in the wrong way. And that's when I got involved with Pivx. And our main focus is to keep hold of privacy, not just to have it and then pivot away. But yeah, that's me. I'm Cryptosi, and I guess we'll speak more about Pivx later.
Thank you for jumping in. Well, today's talk is going to be an interesting one. I'm definitely sure in that. We have people who have been in the industry for quite a while, and of course, maybe have started off like many of us as a Bitcoin enthusiast, but have seen the downfalls of the technology and have pivoted to something else as a result. We're also noticing that a lot of corporations around the world right now are jumping into the financial sphere, proving that those organizations are just looking for as many tools as possible to grab your personal information and just have every data point possible and know something about you. Now, living in a world where we know privacy is a fundamental right, but at the same time, we see regulation completely going against that. How do we feel going forward from here? We want privacy, and many people could agree with us publicly or not publicly. We know that it's a right, but then we see regulations going in the direction that's not the one that protects these rights. How do you guys feel about how currently the situation is developing around privacy coins? Paouky would like maybe to jump in, or?
Yeah, so in my opinion, privacy is a never-ending struggle. We had cash for a long time. It's becoming now irrelevant as more of the world is going online. And it just, privacy, it never will be in the interest of the big institutions. And it's sort of like this, one of these civil struggles. We always have to be on the edge of your toes to keep it going. That's what I think. And I think Bitcoin and Ethereum, they are not going there, and they will never be. And we need to keep on our toes in some other ways, which will become increasingly relevant as cash becomes irrelevant and as the transparent properties of these blockchains are more used and are more abused by governments and by individuals and businesses, and they will be more abused as time goes. And we need to be ready for that. That's what I think.
Anybody else wants to jump in here with their view of where things are going and compared to where we want them? Why do you think that is happening?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in here. So, like I said, so running for Congress, U.S. Congress, it's one of my motivations is to make sure we do start to better protect these technologies. Ultimately, I'm a cypherpunk, I guess you'd say, at heart, or a crypto anarchist. I mean, I think, the idea isn't to rely on the fact that governments will provide these rights to us, but rather to build technologies that will preserve it for us. And so that's why I'm a big Monero advocate. I know, Grin, I'm sure has, a similar ethos and agenda, but the idea is that the technology itself will be able to sustain itself. And it's not about governments allowing people to use these things. It's about these technologies being unstoppable. And ultimately, then I think the question becomes whether or not you think that's a good thing. And obviously I do. I mean, I think at a very basic level, it comes down, do you think there's more, good in the world than evil, right? I mean, that's why the internet itself leads to good things overall, not bad things, right? It's this technology that improves people's ability to communicate in ways never imagined. It kind of democratizes a lot of things, but ultimately, because people are generally good, it leads to good things. So I think It's important for us to currently try to put protections in to allow these technologies to continue to flourish. That's why, you know, like I said, it's one of the reasons why I'm running. You don't really hear people talking about it on the floor of Congress at all yet. They're talking about Bitcoin, but then the default always becomes, well, don't worry about Bitcoin. Ultimately, it's traceable. So like when the hard questions are asked on the floor of Congress, well, what are we going to do if terrorists use it? Oh, don't worry, it's completely traceable. We'll find those terrorists. Nobody's really talking about the technologies like Monero and Grin, where the hard questions need to be answered. And I do think the answer then wouldn't be don't worry, it's traceable. It's be, well, let's not worry about it because this technology is fundamentally important. And we need these technologies to preserve our privacy. And more so, I think ultimately what it's preserving, like I said before, is our liberty and our individuality. I think that's what it really boils down to. We're heading in a direction where, like you said, all this technology is so easily surveilled, and we have these siren servers like Google and Facebook that are collecting all our information. And ultimately, what that's going to lead to, if we don't somehow thwart it, is big government and big corporations eating away at us as individuals, now not allowing us to be, our own free-willed people. So it's a really dangerous road that we're going down, and that's why I'm an advocate for things like Monero and crypto. And I ultimately don't think it's about worrying about the regulation so much, but making sure that these technologies are built in a way that they can't be stopped.
I couldn't really agree more, to be honest with you. I think for me, with privacy and how things are developing now, it's a question of not only acknowledging that we're in the phase now where there is an open and pretty obvious attack on privacy projects. I think it's more about realizing how the attacks are forming and how they're coming against us and how we're going to be able to pivot in a way that we can keep these projects alive and keep on expanding upon them, improving upon them, and having better iterations. One of the ways in which privacy does get attacked is through centralized bottlenecks, like exchanges, for example. I guess I'm not sure about Grin. I know for a fact Pivx, we've been held back as far as exchanges go, as long as I've been with the project. The same would go for Monero. So what we end up doing, I'm not sure if our friend from Monero is aware of this, but I'm also a contributor to another project called Meros. And what they've done recently is they've produced a piece of software called ASMR, which allows atomic swaps with Meros. Now, I think it's through these types of synergies where people within the industry work together and not only have, say, a champion of a particular project. For example, I also own Monero. I also own Zcoin. I'm very bullish on Zcoin. I'm very bullish on Zcash. It's that we all work together and we realize that we're going to have to, at some point and in some ways, kind of put our tribalism maybe a little bit to the side, where other areas of crypto don't have to. The guys in DeFi, they don't really have to worry about that because they're not being attacked in the ways we are. So if we can get things like atomic swaps so that we don't have to rely on exchanges, if we can make sure that we are using maybe not all the same protocols, but if we're using similar protocols and we're making sure that our developers are up to scratch with using the protocols and the cryptographers are looking at the cryptography, I think that the attacks are not so much not so critical as they would be, and they won't finish us off. I also think, going back to what I said originally about my transition into privacy projects through Dash, is that for our projects, it will always be easy for us to be ushered down another road. Like the hopefully soon to be congressman said, if when the question is asked, what they will say is, well, why don't you just put the privacy down? Why don't you do something else? And I think it's important that we don't. Pivx itself, we have a manifesto, and the first line of the manifesto is that privacy is a non-negotiable right. We deliberately didn't add human to that. We didn't say it was a human right because we didn't want it to be something which can be argued away at a political level, because to us, it transcends politics. It transcends all of that. It's a question of, it's my right to interact with another person, and I could care less. And that's how it feels for me personally. I get it will be different for people around the world, but in the UK, where we have the Snoopers Charter, we have 1,000,001 surveillance cameras on every single corner. It really is something that I feel that we have to stay very stubborn on. We have to make sure that we keep our privacy and we keep on building.
Thank you all for this insightful comments. I honestly can't agree more. And even if we look at examples currently in the political world of tools such as the dollar being used against other governments, right? So there's a financial instrument being used to block actual development of a country, or the potential of that country to negotiate and trade with other countries. I see like the privacy regulations coming in are kind of doing that on an individual level. So they would not allow you to have your own, personal development path that you don't necessarily need to communicate to others and record somewhere else for everybody to know what you're doing, right? So it's kind of also governments perhaps going in a direction of having the tool to control you specifically, for you not to be able to spend on specific things, just preventing you from going to certain areas of even like cities. Imagine like being blocked to such an extent that your wallet is not usable in certain geographies, even to that far. I just see it going in such a direction, and because of that, I believe there needs to be protection, and there needs to be some kind of mechanisms. And where do you guys draw the line between what should be privacy, what should be identity protection, and at what point crime investigating bodies should jump in and flag things happening? So when does this pattern of suspicious transactions or a certain value threshold reached, so a certain $1,000, $10,000, when do you think there should be triggers that actually come in place to check, wait, is this money laundering? Is this paying for human trafficking? Is there a line where you think, okay, until this line, we can keep everything absolutely private, no one should dig in, but above a certain threshold, it should become public, or everything should be absolutely private? What do you guys think?
So probably no congressman on the floor of the Senate or the House of Representatives will agree with me here, perhaps besides our friend here who will soon join them. But I think that our payment system, our medium of exchange, our money, which is basically the most neutral thing you have ever, right? Because all you do half your life is you spend it on transferring it to another form of value, right? That form of that system has to be completely neutral. And I believe that what you say is doesn't have a place at all. Doesn't matter if it's $10,000 or $1 million. Criminal activities need criminal investigations, and criminal investigations should not be through financial systems, which are supposed to be completely neutral. And that's really the only way to keep our freedom over the long term, because money is everything in our life. It's literally everything.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, I would tend to, I agree with that. I think money is speech. I think Monero is free speech money. I see it's really just it's a communication protocol, really, and it's being used for transferring value. And it's really kind of the most important form of speech that you need to protect. I mean, where you put your money is where you really put your power and your influence. It's even more vital than words themselves, right? So it's essential that this technology exists for people to freely be able to choose how they essentially influence the things around them, right? I mean, it's I see it as speech and thought itself, right? So money is just kind of the way we're currently, doing it in society. So traditionally, it's, with cash and further back with gold, there really weren't any easy means of tracing it. These rules that governments put in place for wanting to know, how much money, at certain thresholds. I don't know. I mean, it's, once again, I think that the goal here should be building a technology where that kind of becomes moot. And I think that's what crypto is doing. And then we just have to talk about why overall that's going to lead to better things. I think, if we have the seamless system of where essentially value can flow throughout the globe seamlessly without any friction, it's going to overall, once again, I think, I'm 100% confident it's going to lead to a more beautiful world, not something that we have to fear. And I think wanting to put controls in place isn't about wanting to help people or save people. It's about just that, wanting to control. So once again, I think it's really about the technology itself being built in a way where those things kind of become moot. That's my response to that.
Okay, I agree with both of you guys. However, and this has always kind of troubled me. All right, so I'll give you another anecdote. Is there's another privacy project, a great privacy project called Particle. I guess there'll be some Monero guys and Particle guys. They're kind of cut from the same cloth, old school kind of real retro crypto guys. And at Pivx, we had an alliance with them, and we spoke about they built an online marketplace, and the online marketplace was something like Open Bazaar, but kind of built on blockchain and all open source. Anyone can trade there, and in reality, it was the next step from dark web. And there are, and this is just a fact, there are some things on dark web that even privacy advocates do not want to allow. There's exploitation of certain people, certain groups. There'll be exploitation of children and those sorts of things. Our technology will enable that. It will not only enable it, but it will protect those sorts of behaviors and those sorts of actions. It will give people who want to do those things the financial safety to do it. Now, unfortunately, I feel that, well, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, currently, we're at a stage now where privacy has really taken a massive leap. In the last 6 to 12 months, it's taken a massive leap. So we're looking at real technology that we can use on our mobile phones, real technology with proof sizes small enough that we can get it done on our mobile phones with devices as weak as a Raspberry Pi. So it's available now. It's a real thing. We're going to at some point have to ask ourselves how we start to police things if we don't only police them financially. And I've got no real problem asking the question. The only problem is I don't think any of us are really in a position to provide the answers. And I think that's something that we really have to start taking seriously. It's all well and good looking towards the utopian aspect and saying, okay, well, everyone will have their sovereignty and everyone can do whatever they want to do. But what if one person uses their sovereignty to go and abuse another? And that's something, I think that's a question that we really have to start asking ourselves. If not now, in the next 6 to 12 months, because honestly, gentlemen, we are there now. Like we're at that point. So for me, that's kind of how I feel on the criminal aspect. I think it's something that we need to start taking seriously, because none of us wants to build this thing. And this is the conversation I had with the guys at Particle. I said, you're going to build this marketplace, and it's one thing to say we want to have it completely uncensored, but when these things start going on and we can't censor them, then what? Are we going to say we built a marketplace for people to go and do these things, and we stand by the marketplace because we want sovereignty? For me, sorry, no. For me personally, some people will say, oh, well, whatever. The real question is, are we ready to ask ourselves those serious questions? And who do we involve in those questions? Because we have to bring in people from outside of our sphere. Because all three of us would have said, no, there is no limit. Privacy is privacy. Go away. It's my own business. But at some point, we have to bring in the outsiders and we have to have this discussion. And I think it will be a very difficult discussion, especially for us.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to clarify. So obviously, I do think we need to rely on police work, right? So I mean, it's the way it's always traditionally been done. I guess obviously police work becomes more difficult with these technologies, but it's like the internet itself. I mean, the internet opened up all these new ways of communicating. And police work obviously still happens. It's Monero. I see as a tool, and I do think it's. I don't think the protection should be built into the technology. But all for police work happening around the technology and outside the technology, and finding criminals that way. But I don't think it should ever be forced upon the technology to build things into it that would, essentially allow policing to happen. So I think that's where I draw the line. So if we build this open source technology, this open source money that can be used to transfer value seamlessly, I don't think there should be any mandates by governments to essentially try to build surveillance tools into it. And I don't think it would happen anyway, because it's really, the cypherpunks versus, the government's trying to do it. So it's really a moot question. So then it just becomes, well, do governments then try to make use of it illegal? And ultimately, the argument I would make, if one of the greater arguments I would make is obviously not so much the privacy. Obviously, we all know that's important and why that's important, preserving people's individuality. But just, you don't want to be that country that's missing out on this technological evolution, or revolution. I mean, the United States did very well with the internet and Silicon Valley. Look at New York. New York has essentially missed out on crypto, and it's a shame. I mean, the financial capital of the world created the bit license, and it was they really missed out. So an argument I would make to governments is more, even more so from let's not miss out on the benefits of this technology and all the value it's going to create. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think the technology itself should be forced to be altered in any way for policing work. And I do think old school policing can still take place as is.
Would you guys agree that in such a case, like blockchain forensics firms that are analyzing and trying to find out who's the person behind the transactions, do you think this type of companies, should they exist? You're saying, such technology shouldn't be built in, but it's okay if there's external policing. So
I totally think they should exist. I see like a lot of times on Twitter and people arguing, they're angry about these companies tracing, Bitcoin. And I mean, no, that's the tech. Bitcoin was built the way it's built. If it doesn't want to be traced, then it needs to become something else. You can't blame, the market for using its ingenuity to get value out of that technology. These companies exist because of capitalism, right? It makes sense for them to exist, or being whatever it is, being funded by banks, by government, to go build these tools to go trace. We're seeing the same kind of thing happen with other coins, even with Monero. I don't know, CipherTrace. I don't know if you guys heard of that. That's a tool that recently was built, and supposedly it can be used to somehow trace Monero, not definitively, but probabilistically. And, and it's not really clear on how well it's doing it, but all for the fact that it exists. I'm not like, oh no, how dare they do that? That's how these technologies improve. And because Monero is open source and is always open to improving, it's going to continue to pivot and iterate so that it can be protected from these outside forces. But yeah, me personally, I'm totally fine with those companies existing.
Okay.
I like. I feel that it's a good thing when they do exist and they don't get very far. The Cyphertrace, I'm not sure. I think I know about of that one, and it's only. I think it will only exist until Monero gets a little bit more traction and a few more people use it, and then all of a sudden it's useless again. So I wouldn't so much worry about that. What I did want to go back to was the last topic, and when you said about being forced to have people be able to look into or the technology being forced to build in a certain way. And I don't think those are the only two options. I think there is a third option, and I think it's possibly very likely to start to exist. When I go back to the story with Particle, what they spoke about, I'm not sure what they done in the end, but what we spoke about was a way for the holders or a certain amount of the holders to, in some ways, either censor fully or to hide certain adverts that were on the blockchain, so that it would become more difficult for you to indulge in those sorts of things. I think with privacy, it's not been spoken about yet, but it's something that's been swirling around in my mind for a few months. I think there could be a happy medium where you say it's down to the people who hold the token through some sort of DAO or something therein to allow the privacies to be taken away from people on certain occasions. And I think the real crux is here is that you have to allow people to come and go freely. So what we are going to need is we're going to need a spectrum of, I believe, solutions. So we're going to need some which are just, okay, this is what it is. And if that's what you want, that's where you go. And I think we're also going to need some which kind of allow people to, in some ways, regulate what is happening with the technology that they've built. I think that I think it may not be something that I'm personally into, but I think it's something where I think privacy does have room to grow in, and I think I think there's room to grow in that direction.
All right, thanks for your input here, and we're going to start the fire round of questions that we have had from the audience, and anybody who feels confident enough to respond to it, just jump in and go ahead. I'm not gonna point fingers for now. And definitely the one that I would like to follow up at some point is how you guys can work together on creating a better privacy blockchain, because CryptoSci mentioned something in that direction. So I'm going to be really interested to come back to that topic in a few minutes. So let's start with one of the questions that we maybe partially answered, was partially answered by Douglas, regarding what would happen if all privacy coins became illegal everywhere in the world. So we would lose out on the innovation. Do you have any other ideas? What would happen if all privacy coins became illegal?
I mean, I think they may be illegal, but they would continue to exist. You know, it's kind of like the Streisand effect thing, right? So I mean, as more stringent laws are created against guns in this country, everybody runs to the store and tries to buy guns. So I think it would just bring attention to the technology, and people would say, oh, there must be value there if governments are trying to thwart it. So I don't think ultimately it would stop it, and then maybe you know, it's such a theoretical thing. I mean, you would never have it. All countries around the world agreeing to outlaw it, so it would start to blossom in places, I'm sure.
All right, good. So the next question we have is, which privacy coins give the option to pick whether you want your transaction to be public or private? Is there such one?
I don't know if you guys want to jump in.
Yeah, well, with Pivx upcoming sapling update, you'll have the opportunity to go transparent if you want to go transparent, and go private if you want to go private. I guess there's three schools of thought on this, just for people who are not too into privacy yet. There's full-time privacy, where no matter what you do, all of your transactions are going to be private. Then there's I guess there's opt-in privacy, where by default your transactions are public and you can opt in to being private. Sorry, there's four types. There's opt-out privacy, where by default you are using privacy. That tends to be a little bit more strong than opt-in, because if more people are using the privacy option, then there's more fungibility, then the privacy generally works better. And then finally, there's transparency. So for Pivx, yes, we allow you to decide if you want to be private or not. I believe for the sapling update, we're going to have privacy on by default. So if you're not that savvy, and you're just using the currency, and you don't want to take, I don't know, 8 or so hours to learn what it is you need to do, as people always roll their eyes when you first introduce them to cryptocurrency, then your privacy is on by default. So for us, it's on by default, but you get the choice. I guess it will be different for the other guys.
I'd like to add something. The problem with having a choice between being transparent and being private, I mean, you can do that with Bitcoin also. You can do Bitcoin entirely private. It's possible. And you can do that with Zcash. And if you say Pivx, not familiar. But the problem is that it immediately seems like you're guilty of something. That's the real issue. I mean, I don't live in the United States, but where I live, the biggest Bitcoin or crypto exchange we have here, it explicitly says if your Bitcoins ever participated in some kind of mixing service or something that provides you extra privacy, then you're automatically under suspicion, and we don't want your coins. We don't want it. And the problem with allowing you to choose is that that's the problem. You know, you immediately become a suspect. You have to get real privacy, you have to have privacy by default. So that's the most convenient option, and that's the only option, really.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why, you know, I'm in Monero. I don't even really like the term privacy coins, to be honest. You know, it's like we don't call cash privacy money or privacy cash. It's cash. So the goal with crypto was to, or at least my understanding of, you know, reading the Satoshi white paper and what I believe the crypto anarchists set out to do, was to create digital cash, right? So I think I think Monero currently, personally, I think it's doing it the best, and it's private by default. So, and every transaction or every Monero equals every other Monero. And so it allows it to be fungible. This is really why, you know, on a technological level, why I am most interested in Monero. Privacy is a byproduct of that. But really, I believe for this stuff to work, it needs to be fungible. You need every unit to equal every other unit. If you're using it opting in, opting out, you know, then every Bitcoin doesn't equal every other Bitcoin, because you can blacklist these Bitcoins that aren't private. And you know, like the gentleman was saying, you know, when you do opt in, now you're flagged automatically, as opposed to something like Monero, where everybody by default is using the same system, and one Monero always equals one Monero. What Monero does have is the ability to show a view key, to show transactions after the fact if you want to. And I think this goes back to the question of, you know, being concerned about you know, crimes that may take place, and how are governments going to deal with them. Well, you know, good old police work will still exist. You know, we have the Fourth Amendment. You know, you got to go get a warrant then. If you think somebody did some crime and they use Monero to do it, the government's got to go get a warrant, and they'll say, hey, all right, we want to go see your view key, we want to go see your Monero, just like, you know, so I think all those things can still work while having a coin that is private by default.
Okay. All right. So here's the thing. With Pivx, what we're using something called Sapling. Sapling is it uses ZK snarks. So they're what's known as, I'm just going to go over this for the people who are watching who may not be up to date with privacy again. So they're what's known as zero knowledge. Now, with zero knowledge things, we do have fungibility. We have extreme fungibility. When you decide to, even if we decide to opt into privacy, what would happen is the coins that you use, they have no history. So if an exchange says that your coins, if they ever indulged in mixing or X, Y, and Z, then they can't accept them. With zero knowledge, they like, good luck to them to try to find out. The coins have no history. They get created and then they get spent. I think, or I do agree that fungibility is everything. But the thing is that when you're dealing with something like zero knowledge, it's the best realistic, well, to me anyway, it's probably the best way to create fungibility. So what we're doing is we're not mixing all the coins together and then hoping that someone doesn't unmix them, or we're not putting them into a group and then hoping that in 5 to 10 years time people can't break that group. It's zero knowledge. So effectively, at the point when you make that spend, the connection between you and your history and where that money came from and where it went, or all the dirty things that it could have done in its past, or all the clean things it could have done in its past, the gifts you could have bought your wife, the gifts you could have bought your neighbor's wife, all of that is all gone. So we do definitely have that fungibility, and that's not something that is critically broken by giving people the choice. It's not critically broken by that. So I think in that sense, we're possibly being a little too extreme. Of course, I will say, and everybody knows, and for the people who are watching, it is important that if you do have a privacy project, that the vast majority of the people that are on your project use the privacy. And I think the way Monero get around that is by they allow view keys if you want to view. The way we would get around it is we'd say, if you want to use non-private transactions, then here's how you go about it. You have to follow these steps. And most people aren't going to bother. And also, you have to make sure that the private transactions are not more expensive than the public transactions in terms of processing time, processing power, and cost. So those are other things that we also need to consider. But purely on a fungibility scale, you don't have to be completely extreme with it so that it works at all. There is a happy medium, and we're proof of that.
Great, thank you. So just before we jump into the last couple of questions, which I feel we've already covered a bit and seem like a good topic to continue with, I would just like to remind the audience to check out the Play Store and iOS stores for the Cryptomood app, as well as go on cryptomood.com and check out our products there. You might be surprised with what good AI solutions we already have on the market, and things that might help you become a better trader in the future. Also, if you have questions, submit them. We're still collecting questions for our speakers right here. What I would like to continue with is the topic of fungibility. You already started talking about it. So what do you guys think about it in general? Maybe CryptoSci, you had a good thing going on there.
Yeah, so fungibility, it's extremely important as far as privacy goes. For me, I think it's probably the second most important thing. Previously, the most important thing was to make sure that you could have these transactions not cost the earth and not give you a bloated blockchain. Old protocols like Zero Coin, very expensive, gave you a bloated blockchain. Fungibility, very important. If you can erase the history of a coin and every coin is every coin, then then as far as I'm concerned, that's a win condition. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, fungibility is extremely important so that it does stop, like John Bates, I forget his actual name now, like he said that if these exchanges are going to behave and indulge in this chicanery and tell people that if you've done X, Y, or Z in the past, which you may not have done, it may have been the person who owned the coins before you who mixed them, that they can't use them. I myself have used Coinbase, and put coins on there only to know that I couldn't move them and all that kind of nonsense. And it's ridiculous because the way cryptocurrency moves, especially when it starts to move quickly, attacks on the fungibility of coins. It's not only annoying, but it's I think it's against people's rights. It's something that they shouldn't do. So for me, yeah, fungibility is probably the key component to a good privacy protocol.
All right, thanks for your input there. Let's cover the other two questions. The one that we already started, specifically, how can privacy coin communities work together and support each other?
I just wanted to make one more comment. Can I make one more comment on fungibility?
Yes, definitely.
So, I mean, one of the things, often Bitcoin is described as being digital gold, and if we're going to go use that analogy, I mean, fungibility is essential, right? So, every unit, every atom of gold equals every other atom of gold, right? So, I mean, just like I said, on a technological level, I just think it's essential to the technology. And it's not about worrying whether or not, outside companies start to eat away at the fungibility. I think it needs to be built into the core protocol level, and every unit needs to equal every other unit. And if it doesn't, I just think the one that does achieve that first and the best and reaches network effect is the one that will ultimately be used the widest, because it will kind of achieve that digital cash and digital gold status.
Thanks for your input, Douglas. Maybe Paouky can answer the next question, which was regarding how can privacy coin communities work better together and support each other as well.
Right. I'll take that question, twist it a little bit, because it's something I want to talk about, and it relates. Okay, I think that all of the privacy cryptos communities, the best thing they can do right now is to survive. Okay, just stay alive, survive, because this is not our time to shine. Right now, we're building, we're trying, we're experimenting. It's not our spotlight. And I'll tell you a little, not my theory, but I really like it. It's actually some guy named Brandon Arvanahi, I believe, from Layer 1 Capital. He published, Layer 1, sorry. He published a really great article called How Decentralization Dies, the Killer Concessions. I'm in love with that, with his theory. Basically, our whole decentralization movement, basically starting with Bitcoin and now crypto, which just keeps growing, is a result of a very old-fashioned system of money. And it's like what the internet allows for. And a good analogy for that is how the MP3 files used they were pretty much a revolution for the music industry. They made transferring music very easy, very nice, but companies and organizations didn't integrate it. What happens is a great decentralization movement, which was Napster and LimeWire and just all sorts of, I was a baby back then, but I read about it. And a big decentralization movement, even to the fact that 40% of the entire music industry was piracy, okay? And the centralized services, they tried to catch on, but they didn't make the concessions they have to, okay? They didn't make it as easy and as comfortable. And the analogy is that Bitcoin right now is much more convenient in some way than the legacy systems, right? You can do borderless transacting, like write to somebody's private key with no intermediaries, and you can basically be in sole control of your money, and that's what actually people want, right? Nobody actually wants privacy and censorship resistance. People don't care about that. Usually it's in the fringes, right? And once the organizations and the centralized powers begin to see how they lose power, how they lose control, that's when they make what he calls the killer concessions, right? That's when iTunes came up with the really nice, the cheap way to get songs, or when Spotify came with their freemium model, which only then the piracy movement died down because it was just not convenient enough. It stopped being convenient compared to the centralized services. And I think I'm talking a bit too much here, but I think what Bitcoin is this decentralization movement, which will, when it will reach its peak and its power and like take away a lot of the control of the legacy systems, that's when they'll make their concessions. That's when we will return back to more centralized systems. But there's a big but here. We will never see from them concessions about censorship resistance and privacy, which go hand in hand, right? And that's where we need to shine, I think, once the powers make concessions, and basically they will give the mainstream all that it wants. It will be all that it wants, basically. Most people will use that. They don't need the trouble of Bitcoin and whatever, but they will never get privacy and they will never get real censorship resistance. And that's why we privacy coins are here. And we need to see that we get to that stage and we actually provide the fringe parts of society, hopefully not so fringe by then, but fringe sides of the society that actually really want privacy and censorship resistance and provide them to that. That was really long answer, sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. Yeah, that I agree. I've not actually heard that before, but that's actually quite true, and I do think along those lines. To answer the question about how privacy projects can work together, I think first and foremost, the first thing that people have to do when they're within their privacy projects is to venture out, and I think that's the single most difficult thing for somebody who's emotionally invested within a cryptocurrency to do. There are so many people who know so much about their crypto. You know what I mean? So, for example, for me personally, I have to push myself to take time to go and say, okay, what is Monero? What are these guys doing? What type of people is within their community? Where are they planning to go within the next 2 to 5 years? The same with Mimblewimble and Grin or Beam or those other types of privacy along those lines. I think that's the first thing we need to do. I think the second things we need to do, if we're going to truly work together, is we need to start taking DAOs seriously. We need to really start working on DAOs, and we need to start treating DAOs like we treat children. So, for example, the oldest DAO, to my knowledge, real DAO is Dash. Dash is maybe 7 years old, and it's not setting the world on fire, but not very many 7-year-olds have. So it's still a baby. It's still very much centralized. It still needs that crutch to help it move. Similar with Pivx, we're a DAO, but we're young. What we have is we have a protocol which I put in place. It's not actually a technical protocol. It's a social protocol called our Alliances protocol. What it does is it allows, in a decentralized way, our project to work with any other projects. And that's how we came to be in an alliance with Particle, another privacy project, which actually uses Ring CT, same as Monero. So I think those types of things we have to do. We have to, individually, we have to start to go out and we have to start to meet other people. I would love if these two gentlemen came to the Pivx Discord and hung around for a little while and started to get to know the project and see how we could work together, try to pick the good things that we've done, and we vice versa will pick the good things that they've done. During the time we've had this Alliances project, our own project has gotten so much stronger in so many areas, so much stronger in so many areas. So I think that working together is not only a technological thing, which I will actually get to, so this is going to be a long answer, probably as long as Paouky's, but also a social thing as well. I think it's very important. For example, Monero, I know for a fact to be very North American heavy, very, very North American heavy. And North America has a completely different attitude towards crypto than South America, for example. One of our developers, a guy named Furzy, he's from South America. We were speaking once face to face, and I happened to use the word liberty. And the look on his face was completely different to how the look on another person from London's face would be if I said liberty. To us, who really cares? Like, we haven't really had situations where we've really felt our liberty has been taken away from us in such a way as the South Americans have. So I think that's the type of social benefits you get from venturing outside, and then you don't have such an echo chamber. On a technological level, it's also interesting and important that we work together, because there are such things as exploits. Monero's had them, Pivx has had them. I'm not sure if Mimblewimble has had them yet. They should have by now. And if they haven't yet, they're still young. You'll get your chance, you'll have them. When these occur, it's important, and generally it's observed, that you have responsible disclosure, that you make sure that you're not just saying, okay, this is going on, it's a free for all, let these people go and do what they want and crash your networks. Also, with regards to privacy and protocols, it's important that for my personal belief, and for Pivx is the reason why we chose Sapling, is that you don't just go off on your own for the sake of going off on your own. We could have decided to make our own protocol from scratch, do the cryptography ourselves, release it, and then hope it survived for 2 years. Instead, what we've done is we took what the Electric Coin Company, the guys at Zcash had done, and we've built it and modified it to work with our proof of stake protocol. I think that type of working together, it yields really, really strong crypto projects that can't be broken overnight. Not to say that they can't be broken, everything that man makes, man can break, but just to say that on a technological level, it's extremely important, because projects that work with other projects, generally, they get the synergy of 2 + 2 = 5. So yes, it's extremely important. And I think that we need to, all of us, all of our projects need to work more on DAOs, so that it's not just the guys at the top, the early adopters, generally always male, generally always 30 plus, generally always got a certain kind of financial status, generally all in a certain part of the developed world. It's no good us being the ones who are the only people who can make the decision. It needs to be down to the people who are actually using the coin, owning the coin, and who come into the coin. Otherwise, we can't build something for the world. I can't be headstrong enough to think that some guy from London can know what everybody in all 4 corners of the world wants. So yeah, I tried to get through that as quickly as possible, and I'm sure I missed some bits out. But yeah, that's how important I think working together is.
Yeah, I just see it as the pursuit for creating digital cash, and it's kind of like an arms race. I mean, I know that's Monero, the Monero ecosystem. I know that's what they're trying to achieve. And I don't think it's so much working together. I think the competition is good. I think it's more so about the competition. I think that's what's going to lead to the best product. I don't think we need people being toxic towards each other. That's not helping anything. But obviously the competition is great, and that's what we're seeing. And we have all these little projects that are trying to test out little iterations of things. And I think the best ones are ultimately going to rise to the top. The ones that, in my opinion, the ones that most truly mimic digital cash is going to be one of them. I mean, there'll be a few other use cases. I think I don't think it's so much about working together. I think it's about if you think Monero is the one, go work on Monero. If you think it's Pivx, go work on that. Obviously, if you're smart, you'll keep an eye on the other ones, right? So Monero is kind of prides itself in being a community that's always looking at its own technology and questioning it. We have Breaking Monero. I don't know if you guys ever heard. It's a series of videos that Justin in the community and Sarang do. Sarang is one of the developers and mathematicians, cryptographers behind Monero. And it's a whole series on what's potentially wrong with Monero, and they're always questioning it. And then there's skepticism. I think skepticism Sundays on Monero. So the community has built into its culture. Let's not assume that we are the best, unlike something like Bitcoin that's already like put the flag in and said, we're digital gold. It's always questioning and kind of trying to take a scientific approach. Obviously, there's those that are entrenched. I try to be as biased as possible, but I'll admit it. I'm human, right? So, so I guess my answer is, I think the competition's it's great. It's more about competition, cooperation, trying to get the crypto community coins to cooperate. I don't think it's really so much about that. It's may the best projects win. And if you want to just go care about your own project and not look at anything else, it's probably going to end up being to your own detriment. So I would just say competition's good, and it's very pure in crypto. I mean, it's unlike any other technology I think we've seen. I mean, there's new ones popping up all the time, and I think it's great. And I think things are going to naturally weed themselves out, and I'm all for the competition.
Awesome. Thanks for all the input, guys. Thank you for participating today. This would be basically our last words. And I believe it was a nice conversation. We're getting feedback from the audience that they enjoyed this, especially the last few discussions that we just had. So this would be everything. Thanks again for your input. To everyone still watching, check us out on social media and come to our website, check the products. And don't forget, next week, CryptoMood is organizing the DeFi panel. So look forward to getting more details about that. Thank you for all your contributions, guest speakers, and for actually the prize for the best question. We're going to announce that on social media right after we wrap up this session. And thanks to the audience for submitting the great questions. This was it, and have a good evening, day, and wherever you are around the world. Bye-bye.